Hello friends, welcome to part 6 of our web series Learn IoT with MediaTek LinkIt 1. In our previous tutorials, we have explained you about input devices or sensors and also about output devices and actuators. But please remember that IoT or Internet of Things is nothing without an internet. So far, we have been only discussing about things, but we have never connected them to the internet. Well, we are not going to actually connect them to the internet in this tutorial as well, but we are going to begin this by introducing you with the added functionality of a feedback over the internet. So which is by sending SMS to the user whenever the temperature is detected and the touch sensor is basically touched in the IoT device. So in this tutorial, what we will essentially do is we are going to show you all the sensors and actuators or output devices that we have explained in the previous example, and on top of it we are going to add the GSM functionality. Alright, so as you know that in GSM we can make a GSM call and we can also make a simple short message service SMS as well. So we're going to use the SMS functionality to send the temperature values to the user. Okay, so as you know, traditionally we have input devices and sensor. So on the left side we can see that we have a touch sensor and temperature sensor that is going to act as a input devices or sensors in this tutorial. Then on the right side we have output devices or actuators. So we are going to use LED bar, a 10 segment LED bar, and an OLED display to display the message on the readable format to the user on the IoT device. And the IoT device in the middle is basically the IoT device that we use for doing a pre-processing and then sending the required information to the cloud to reach it to the user. In this example, additionally, we will see how to use a GSM module functionality and also importantly how to use threads. Now we have only seen a plain looping function, so we have seen that the Arduino scheduler scheduling only one task at a time after a certain amount of delay that we have provided. But with the introduction of threads in this tutorial, we'll see that how the scheduler will schedule the different threads in a different timing order. So let's not wait anymore for this and let's proceed with the tutorial. So the hardware requirement for this tutorial is right in front of you. So as you can see that we require a MediaTek LinkIt board with the groove shield. Then we require a lithium-ion battery to provide an extra power. We need a temperature sensor, the exactly same sensor that we used in our first tutorial. Then we require an OLED display to display the temperature value and also show the status of SMS sent or not. We require a GSM antenna. This comes in the same packaging as the LinkIt board. So GSM antenna we need to connect so that we can send the SMS over the GSM network. Then we require a touch sensor and we require an LED bar, 10 LED bar. Then I'm actually taking two small breadboards in order to put the sensors in the right place, and then we require 4 groove shields. Apart from this, you would require an active GSM SIM. So if you have an active GSM SIM, I've used an Airtel SIM, and you have to insert the GSM SIM into the SIM card slot which is provided at the back of the MediaTek LinkIt board. So let's start the hardware interfacing now. So we are going to take a temperature and temperature sensor. And as seen in the previous tutorial, we are going to connect it to A0 port. Okay, so let's connect it to analog port A0, temperature sensor. Then we are going to take a OLED display, and as we have seen that OLED display is an I2C interface display. So we're going to connect it to the I2C connector. So let's connect that here. Then we are going to take a touch sensor and we are going to connect it on D2 port. So same as in the next tutorial that we saw. So we're going to use D2 port for connecting touch sensor as it is a digital sensor. And then we are going to finally the LED bar and connect it to D4. As LED bar would require two digital port lines, D4 and D5. We are going to connect it on the groove shield connector called D4, right? And therefore simplicity, you can connect the all the input output devices on a breadboard that I'm going to connect later. But before that, let's connect the GSM antenna. So to connect the GSM antenna, you need to make sure that we connect it to the right slot. Uh, so as you can see that this is for a GPS antenna, this is for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and this is for GSM. So I'm going to connect the GSM antenna over here. Okay, that's it. So now the GSM antenna is also connected. Let's connect the battery as the last thing, and then as you can see that it will be powered on. Okay, so friends, let's go through the program now. So first thing to remember is that as we are using all the sensors and the output devices that we used in the previous tutorials, so we need to include those header files also. So the previous tutorials will help you to proceed with this one. I'm not going to explain few of the things about, for example, the data sheets and how the sensor works and things like that in this tutorial. So if you want to know more about that, please refer to my previous tutorial. So as of now, these functions are the same functions that we had in the previous tutorial as well. Okay, so these header functions are same. The extra header functions that you can see basically here is the LGSM. So this LGSM is part of the GSM library that comes by default with the MediaTek LinkIt library. So for that to include, actually you can see the LGSM library over here. You just need to import that, and we are going to use the SMS functionality of the LGSM function over here. And then the newly added function is also a timed action. Now why timed action is used here is basically because to implement the thread. There are certain activities we would require to be done in the thread. The reason basically, for example, is that consider that there are different types of different timings are required for touch sensing and the temperature detection and the SMS sending. The reason basically because the touch sensitivity has to be very high. So as soon as I press put my finger on the touch sensor, it should actually identify the touch sensitivity. So I cannot put any delay in top of that. So all these activities, there are 3 activities that should go into the thread. So what I'm going to do here in this tutorial is that the main thread will only consist of a touch sensing portion. So as soon as I touch it, the LED bar will basically change its value. So that's going to be in the main thread. Then there are 2 threads basically that I've implemented. The first thread is for the temperature sensing part. So temperature sensing would be done at every regular, as you can see here, 1000 milliseconds. So every 1 second check temperature thread will be running, and then at every 1 second again a SMS thread will also be running. So as soon as I touch the button, so at least I am required to keep my finger on the touch sensor for 1 second minimum, so as to detect the SMS thread and trigger it. Right, so just consider that. So timed action library is a third-party library. It can be downloaded from the link which is given in the description box. So please feel free to download that and then import that library as we will be importing the rest of the libraries. Right. Then certain constant declarations are here, which are exactly the same as has been done in the previous section. So I'll not explain them here. Then there is a temperature value and the touch sensor value. I made these 2 values as the global variables. The reason is basically because my 3 threads need to multiple threads need to access those values. So in order to do that, it is better to declare them as a global variable. So that's what I've declared them as a global variable here. And then I have a processing boolean. Now why processing boolean will be required is that because SMS sending functionality will take some time, depending on the network availability, the thread might get delayed. So in between the thread, it is possible that while the previous request is being processed for sending the SMS, there is a chance that a next request might also come. So we need to ignore the next request, and to be able to do that, we are actually using a processing boolean value over here, which will be used in a SMS send thread. Okay, now the 2 threads we need to define as functions. Okay, so the first function is a check temperature function, which we are defining here, and it is exactly the same code as we have seen in our first tutorial. So reading the temperature value from an analog read function, and then doing the mathematical processing as per the formula that we have derived, and then displaying those values, temperature values on the OLED display. So that's all been done in the check temperature function over here. And the next function, which will also run as an independent thread, will be send SMS function. So here what I'm trying to do is the SMS send will only happen if the touch sensor value is 1, which means if I have pressed my finger, I have touched the touch sensor with my finger, then only the SMS send function should get activated. In order to do that, I'm first checking whether the touch sensor value digital output is 1. Okay, please remember that as this function will be running in thread and the thread will run every 1 second, we need to press the touch sensor for minimum of 1 second, the minimum of 1 second. And that is the reason while I show the demo, you will see that I have to keep touch the sensor for quite a amount of time in order to basically trigger the SMS send function. Then I'm having a if block where the processing variable is checked. If it is false, means processing is false, then I'm going to only process this. This is to avoid the arrival of multiple requests while the first processing is still going. So I should ignore those. For that matter, the processing variable is checked over here. Okay, as soon as I checked it here, inside the if block I set the processing as true, which means the next request that will come here, next trigger will come here, it will block it. It will not process this if block. Okay, then I'm actually sending the SMS to one of my numbers. So please, in SMS begin SMS, please input the mobile number without the international code number. If it is your local number, so no need to include the international or ISD number over here. And then I'm what I have to do is I have to use SMS print function and inside that I can print the message that I need to give it. So first I use LSMS print and write the value as temperature is colon, and then I give a spacing, and I again use the same function LSMS print and use the temperature value. After that I again use LSMS print and I give a space and C mark. So in fact my the final value should look like, for example, like this. So it should be something like temperature is colon, and let's say it is 25.6 space centigrade. So this should how the message should actually look like when I receive it on my mobile phone. All right. After that, I'm using a LSMS end SMS function. Now this function is what will trigger or initiate the SMS sending functionality, and it will also is an await function. It's a synchronous function, so it will wait and then it will give a return value as either true or false. If it is true, which means the SMS is successfully sent. If it is false, which means there is something error that has happened, and that for that reason the SMS was not able to send. So it could be for multiple reasons. So I'm capturing that boolean value here. If it is true, then I should use the fourth column in the OLED display to display a message as SMS sent. So I'm using these two lines to basically put out the message as SMS sent when the SMS is sent. Then I'm giving a 5 seconds delay because I need to still show this message for a minimum 5 seconds. So I give 5 seconds delay, and then I clear the display, and I put the processing variable value back to false. In the else block, which means then SMS is not sent, there is an error happened in the SMS. I use the same thing, but the message is going to be a little different. The message is going to be SMS not sent, and I'm again giving a 5 seconds delay, and then I clear the display and I set the processing variable as false. So this is going to be my send SMS function, which will be run as a separate thread. Now, as we have created functions for two threads, now we need to define them or declare them. Okay, and to do that, I'm using a timed action function, which is derived from a third-party library, and I declare them here. So in the time action function, you can create a function thread name as you want to specify them, but please remember that the value, the first value is going to be basically at what interval the thread should run. So for example, I'm giving 1000 milliseconds, which means that every 1 second this thread will run. Okay, so in a real-time operating system, this is something like a scheduled activity. Okay, it's a scheduler. The internal scheduler will basically schedule it for every 1 second. Okay, so it's going to be a periodic task in a uh, for a scheduler in a scheduled real-time operating system. So then I'm going to use a check temperature, which is the function which we created over here, and I'm going to name that function. Similarly, I'm going to do for SMS thread also. So it is going to run for 1 second, and I'm declaring the function over here. Okay, so that's all done. Now we are going to go to the setup block of the code. In setup, what we need to do is the same thing that we have done. So the pin mode, setting touch pin to input, then we are initializing the LED bar. All this is done here. Then we are initializing wire, we are initializing the OLED display, and then we are clearing the display, set normal display, set push board. All these functionalities has been clarified in my first tutorial. So if you have doubt, please go back to my first tutorial, and you can get to know what this thing really mean. What is new over here is basically these 4 lines of code. The 4 lines of code, basically what does it do? So first I have to do the LSMS ready function. I need to call this, and I need to call it in a loop unless and until the LSMS ready function gives me an return value as true, which means the SMS functionality is ready, the GSM module is ready. I should not proceed further. So what I do is, unless and until I get a true value, I keep on checking. I am using a while loop here. I'm keep on checking every 1 second whether the LSMS function is returning a value of 1, which means whether the GSM module is ready or not. So I'm doing it in a while loop. Only after the SMS the GSM module is initialized, it will go on to the next block of code, which will be sim initialized, and this message will be printed on a OLED display. Okay, that I'll display it for 3 seconds, and then I'll clear the display. I'll clear the display so that when it goes to the loop, it will start displaying the temperature value as we have seen in the first tutorial. So that's about the setup. Now let's go to loop. The loop is going to be very simple because now we have handled most of the functionality in threads. So as you can see in loop, what I do is the first 2 things that I do is check temp thread check. So this is the function. I do the thread dot check function, and I do SMS thread dot check function. So I call these 2 threads, and I do the check function onto them. The reason is basically to check whether they are scheduled or not. So in an RTOS, basically whenever I do that in a loop, the scheduler will check whether the 1 second time period is lapsed or not. If it is lapsed, then it will be scheduled. Then the temperature thread and the SMS thread will be scheduled to run. So that's the reason these 2 thread dot check should be called in the beginning of the loop function. All right, then what I do is I do a digital read, as I explained to you in the beginning of this, that the loop only contains the touch sensing and the LED bar setting functionality. So I'm doing a digital read on a touch pin. I just check whether if somebody has touched the touch sensor or not, and if yes, then I set the LED bar as 10. Now with difference to the previous tutorial, if it is not touched, then I'm setting level as 1, which means the red LED will be glowing. And if somebody has touched the LED bar, the touch sensor, then the LED bar is actually displaying all, or illuminating all the LEDs, all the 10 LEDs of it. So that's the only difference that is here. The rest of the functionality that I have told you already is been done in the temperature thread and the SMS thread. Okay. So I think the program is pretty easy. I have explained to you each and everything that's happening in the program or the code. Now let's go to the flashing. As you know how the flashing is being done, so I'm not going to show you that. But now let's assume that I have flashed the program onto my MediaTek LinkIt board, and now let's see whether I'm able to achieve the functionality as I said while explaining these or not. So friends, let's see now whether the application works perfectly as we expected or not. So as we see that we have a touch sensor, we have a temperature humidity sensor, we have a LED bar, and we have a OLED display. And as you can see that the temperature reading is shown on the OLED display. Okay, and if I keep my hand on the temperature sensor, the temperature increasing. So it is perfectly working fine. Now as far as the touch sensor and the SMS functionality is concerned. So let's see whether that will work or not. So what is supposed to be done is that I'll touch the touch sensor for some time, and then the LED bar should actually glow to full, all the 10 LED bars, and after some time the the SMS should be sent, and the specific message should come on the OLED display, and then we should receive an SMS on our mobile phone. So let's see whether that happens or not. So I'm going to touch that touch sensor for some time, and as you can see, LED bar is now glown, and I'll keep it pressed until the message comes up on the OLED display. So either it should say SMS sent or SMS not sent. So let's see whether what comes. Okay, so now it says SMS not sent, so which means there is some problem, probably the connection issue, and we can try it out again. So I'm going to press this, and the LED bar goes, and I'm going to remove the button, and now you can say that the SMS is sent. So it quite happens sometimes when the SMS is not sent. That is because of the network issue. So let's see now whether the SMS can be received or not. I have already received one SMS from the board, which is at 6:43 today. So let's see now, and I'm pressed the button. Okay, SMS is sent. Now it should arrive. Okay, 10:59. Okay, let me just put my finger on the temperature sensor and increase the temperature value. Now it is increased a bit, and I'm going to press now SMS sent touch button, and once it is done, yeah, SMS sent, and you can see 11.76 value. So that's it, my dear friend. We'll come out with a new episode with new things to do with your MediaTek LinkIt board. Till then, you stay tuned to our channel and subscribe to our channel. Like this video, share this with your friends, and get benefited with the IoT tutorial. So till then, see you, bye bye, and have a nice time.